And it's the same thing that happened with the original one. They got, when we went from miniseries to series, it's a different way of storytelling, just like features tell a story different than episodic television. And we took, and I'll be honest, in the series that I was on, we took probably 8 to 9 episodes to find ourselves in the series. And I remember being backlot with Warner Brothers one night, and they'd taken a bunch of cars out of the old carpool in Warner's and gutted cars and turned them over and set a couple of them on fire. And we did all the scenes outside around trash cans with fires in them, and in alleys, and on fire escapes, and roasting potatoes, you know, and running around, and they were all wearing the same clothes all the time. And it exploited, you know, this sort of, you know, Earthlings Under Fire aspect of V. But it took us that many shows to, you know, the miniseries was very successful because it was a metaphor about, you know, the occupation of Europe by the Nazis. And I think that in the new V, there was an overlying metaphor, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Joel, but I think it was, it's more that, you know, that kind of consumer advertising thing, and how the aliens exploited that and got the kind of mind control through our Earthlings' own kind of things that we respond to, the hidden persuaders of advertising and culture and pop culture and consumerism, and which I loved in the new V, and I thought, and I could tell they were going places with that too, with Anna and all of the people that were working, you know, with the aliens. So I mean, I was really like, wow, what's happening next? But like you said, the lag time on these shows, when they take a show off and you're anticipating, hey, I don't want to, you know, since I've been 40, I don't want to go out on Tuesday nights. There's an old saying, man cannot live on cannabis alone, you know. After your first 50 screenings as a kid and your first 50 openings and free food, it gets a little old. And you kind of just want to, you know, throw the Afghan and the dog in the bed, turn on V, because it's going to be on Tuesday night at 9 o'clock, and get your cold Chinese food out of the refrigerator. That's that comfort food formula thing that people respond to. I have my own favorite, you know, I'm there for Fringe. I don't want to miss an episode of it, aside from my crush on her. The Kate Blanchett prime time. It's weird. I mean, I just can't believe that twice they have prematurely lost a show that has fans nominated. Joel wasn't with me. I was up in Toronto last week for their sort of Comic-Con up there. Probably, and this is going to make Joel pained, but I would say 40 to 50 people asked me questions about the next season of V. They don't know because they're on a lag. They just saw the first season. No one's told them in Canada that it's canceled. And you know, there's a ratio you do with fans. If 50 fans came to me, and I'm not on the new V, and asked me questions if I knew, because Mark Singer and Jane Badler had been invited back, if I knew any of the gossip about the third season, that's a demographic. That's prime time. That puts you at probably about 39th in the ratings, you know, in a country that's part of North America, let alone how big it is in Europe. It's huge in London. I know it's huge in London. And I just wonder, you know, the powers to be, this is that thing again, whether there have been maybe some executive office musical chairs and infighting, like the politics that goes on in Washington. Anyway, I've babbled enough. Next question.
Are you telling me to piss me off? Is that what you're doing?
No, I'm telling you as a compliment so that you know that the Canucks love your butt.
Kind of kept evolving. Like he was going back to what he was like before he really took on his more spiritual leadership role. How did you feel about your character's arc as it was starting to evolve into, if the third season would have been picked up, what kind of character you would have been?
You know the connection between 4400 and V. I don't know if you. tell you, Scott Peters created the 4400. He also wrote the pilot of V. So he was going to be the showrunner of V, and he asked me to come in for that. And so I knew Scott. I love what he does with characters. He's also directed several episodes of the 4400, and he had such a great duality of the character-driven stuff and then the sci-fi aspect of the show. And he would find moments that were so human, relatable connection things in scenes, and he would make you find those moments when you were doing the scenes, when he was directing, and he would write it also in the episodes that he wrote. So I knew I'd be taken care of in V for Father Jack. Unfortunately, Scott was replaced right at the beginning of the show, and I was very happy with what the writers did after that for me, but Scott told me early on, he said, the collar's coming off, you're going to fight, and then you're going to also have to go back with you're going to have issues with your spirituality. And I love that, and I think what the other writers did with the part, even though I kept the collar on for a long time before I got laicized, new word that I never heard before, you've been laicized, was that, you know, and I think that's so true in life. I mean, I know I have that. I have 2 daughters now, and I struggle with certain aspects of my spirituality and the importance of it, and for me, individually. And for Father Jack, with, you know, saying at the beginning that this wasn't in the scriptures, you know, it didn't talk about these aliens showing up there. This was not, and how does that equate to God and people's lives, and where do you go? So I thought the arc of Father Jack was an interesting one, and I thought that there was a part that was really going to explore why he became a priest, and the choice of doing that, and wanting to really help people, mankind, in that spiritual aspect, and yet having a military background. And I had this whole backstory. Every time I get a job, I had an acting teacher tell me a long time ago, write a biography of your character before you got this role. So as actors, we get the part. It says, okay, and you show up, and you're coming out of the church, and you look up, and you see, okay, what happened before that? Okay, and I wrote out this 20-page thing that just came, right or wrong, it was going to help me, and a word that my acting teacher used to always say was galvanize you, like what makes you want to get up in the morning? What drives you? What are your wants? What are your desires? Why did you become a priest? And so I wrote that, and that history kind of helps, you know, and then the writers kind of take you a whole different way, but it's fine. You still have this, and you kind of, like, you know, work it into that storyline. But I don't know if I answered your question correctly.